ain't May the 10th. I forgot to change my date. Sorry about that. Today's May the 17th, believe it or not. We got a flipper and everything today. We're studying today special duties that are commanded for Christians. We're on number 7, how to behave when we're persecuted, verses 13 through 17. Verse 13, Peter wrote, "And who is he who will harm you if you become followers of what is good?" Who is he who will harm you? In Proverbs 16 and verse 7, Solomon said, "When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him." Proverbs is wise sayings. They're general rules. Sometimes people don't understand that. If the Bible says when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him, then every believer ought to be at peace with all people. That's not what a proverb is. A proverb is a general statement. This is the way it's most likely to be. Not that it will be that way, but it is most likely. For us, we got a lot of people in this country who don't like us because we're Christians. But all in all, we live quiet lives for the most part. There's a few people that try to create a little commotion, but all in all, most people aren't that way, and that's what Peter's talking about. If the Christian behaves, lives like a Christian ought to believe, even though he is a slave, and even though the government is anti-Christian, yada yada yada, for the most part, their lives will be peace, and that was true. It was for the most part. There were times when the Christians were severely persecuted. But it didn't last all that long. It would last 3, 4, 5 years, and then it would kind of quit. And then another emperor would come along, and he wouldn't like Christians, so he'd go after them for a while. And again, it would last for several years, and then it would quit. It would go away. So most of their lifetime was lived in peace. A lot of people, I'd say their entire lifetime was lived in peace. Even though when it was times of persecution, many thousands of Christians did perish at the hands of unbelievers. So don't take these maxims as an absolute. It's not meant to be an absolute. It's just a general way of looking at things. See here on verse 14, but even if you should suffer, okay, who's going to harm you if you do good? But even if you do suffer for righteousness' sake, you are a blessed person. Blessed, of course, means happy. You can still live a life of great contentment, because even though you might be suffering for righteousness' sake, you know there's a better day coming. It's not going to last. And even if they take your life, in the end, you're going to be better off. You personally will be better off. Because you will go to be with the Lord instead of being stuck here. And do not be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Don't let this get you down, what they say. A lot of times what people say amount to nothing. But sanctify the Lord God in your heart. Hold on to Jesus. Sanctify means make holy. Make him holy in your heart. Make him the anchor of your soul, even when things are difficult. Think on the Lord. I remember the psalmist in, I believe it's the 73rd Psalm, I'm not sure, but he was, woe is me, because of all the criminals who were getting away with murder just about, and the Christians were suffering at their hand. And he was, oh, woe is me, woe is me. And then when you get down so far in the psalm, finally he said he was troubled by all that. And then one day he went into the sanctuary, he went into the house of God. And while he sat there, he remembered that they're living the good life right now, those that persecute the Jews. They're living the good life right now, but it's temporary. For them, there's a bad day coming. And even though they may be in control right now, uh, shortly when their lives end, uh, they're going to be under the control of another one, and it won't be pleasant. And that made him have a better outlook, I guess you'd say, uh, because he knew not that he found pleasure in their suffering, but he knew that there's a day of reckoning when the righteous will be rewarded and the unrighteous will fall under condemnation. If we really appreciate hell, what hell is and what will happen in hell, we should be extremely happy that by the grace of God we've been saved. Because the alternative, of which all of us were once partakers, is unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. There's nothing like it. You know, a lot of people during their lifetimes, they suffer. We've all watched people suffer, and sometimes people suffer horrendously. But any suffering we've ever seen in this world won't even compare to the suffering in the lake of fire. The torment is, I don't think we can understand it, to be honest. I don't think we can understand heaven. I mean, we get an idea of what heaven's like. It's a reward. It's going to be good and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think we'll really understand heaven until we get there. And then it'll make sense. Right now, though, we're going to come up short. No matter how hard we think about it, we're going to fall very far short of what heaven's really like. And I think the same thing can be said about hell. It's going to be worse than we could even imagine it would be. And this is one way now, keep it in mind, this is one way to get through the tough times. Even though somebody who is persecuting you might be victorious at the moment, there's a day coming when they won't be victorious any longer. And see if you can't find some peace because of that. It sounds ugly to say, but it just happens to be a fact of life. Anyway, sanctify the Lord God in your hearts. Make God holy, Jesus holy in your heart. And always be ready. That's not a suggestion, that's a command. Always be ready to give a defense, give an apology to everyone who asks you for a reason. Reason is something you can point to as evidence. What is the reason for the hope that is in you, the hope you hold on to? With meekness and fear, that's the attitude, how we respond to them. We have a hope of life eternal. The question is, why? Why do you believe that? There's several questions people ask. Why do you believe in God? You can't see him. Why do you believe? It's like, no children here, are they? It's like believing in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny, something like that. Why do you believe in those? And we say, well, I don't really. It's a children's thing. A lot of people, even people who are supposedly believers, believe that God is much like a children's thing. It's not for real. But always be ready to give a defense. Defend your faith when people ask you that question. Always be ready at any time, at any moment when people ask. The word defense there means, it's from the Greek term apologia. People like me are said to be an apologist. And it sounds kind of wrong, doesn't it? Sounds like you go around and make apologies for things. But the word apologia, translated in English, apology, doesn't carry that meaning with it. It's a defense, as it's translated. Uh, I believe in God. Defend my position. The Lord's saying, John, you always be ready to defend your position. Why do you believe in God? Explain it to somebody. Give him reasons why you believe in God. Can I do it? If I can't do it, then I haven't kept this command. We're supposed to be able to, that's why we bring in apologists all the time to teach us how to make a defense when we are questioned. These brethren come in and they explain to us why we believe in God. Do I keep it in mind, or do I just let it go? What am I doing with the information? According to Peter, I'm supposed to always be ready to make that defense. I believe that Jesus raised from the dead on the third day. Why do you believe in that? I'm supposed to give him a reason why I believe Jesus was raised from the dead. When it comes to everything we hold on to, everything we believe, we're supposed to be able to explain it. I believe in the resurrection of the dead. Death, separation of the body and spirit, is temporary. And eventually the spirit and the body are going to be reunited. Why do you believe in something so outrageous? See, this is why people think we're crazy. I believe in the resurrection of the dead. Why? I don't know, I just do. Yeah, people shake their heads and they just walk off and say, no, they're crazy. We don't have a reason for what we believe. Peter said, don't do that. Give people a reason. Now, this is very important, and I'm going to probably step on toes. But why can't you defend it? You spend hours being taught. The information is on the internet. You can access it whenever you want to. You got it at your finger. There was a time when farmers would have a very hard time making a defense of why they believe in God, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you know what? They did it. A lot of them did it, a lot of them didn't, but a lot of them did do it. There was a lot of Gus Nichols, for example. He had an 8th grade education. He had a bunch of kids. I forgot how many, but it was in the double digits. But he studied in his outhouse most of the time because that's the only place where he could get some privacy. He taught himself Greek and Hebrew. He taught himself. He never went to school. And he could speak Greek and Hebrew fluently. Now we're talking about a man who only went to the 8th grade. And he was a champion of defending the faith. There was only one guy during his lifetime that was his equal, and that would have been Guy N. Woods. Now Woods was a guy who had passed the bar. He was an attorney, though he never practiced law. But he was a very highly educated man, and he could do all the same stuff. But Gus Nichols could too. As a matter of fact, Guy N. Woods said on several occasions that Gus Nichols was the most intelligent man he ever met in his life. And he only went to the, you see, that's not an excuse. That's my point. It's not an excuse. I didn't go to college. So what? Nichols didn't go to high school. But look at how much that man knew. I got books he wrote. I mean, he was very, and there's a lot of the preachers. I say preachers because these are the people I heard from. There was probably other people that knew all this stuff too, but they weren't preachers, and I don't know their names. But there were people who learned how to defend the faith, and they debated denominationalists throughout their whole life. They're the ones that won the South over to Christ because they were such great teachers. And this is something that they took very seriously, was this charge. Being able to tell somebody why you believe what you believe. Now, I don't think that's too much for the Lord to ask. As a matter of fact, let me go a step farther. Can a person be saved if they can't explain why they believe what they believe? Why would you believe it? That's the question. If you don't have evidence, why would you believe in God? You believe in a person you can't even see, and you don't know why? Why, you're nuts. That's what people think, and they think we're nuts because so many people can't explain their position. You know, if I got down on my knees and begged and everybody would do it, I'd get down on my knees and beg because that's how important this is. It's not that we're going to be scholars or something of that nature, but being able to explain why I believe in God or why I believe Jesus Christ was raised from the dead. Some people have been a Christian for 50, 60 years, and they can't answer that question yet. Doesn't that seem wrong to you? We got an explicit command. I mean, we get all up in arms because people don't baptize for remission of sins. Well, the Bible says so. Anybody ought to know that much. Well, what about this one? We're supposed to be able to answer why we believe what we believe. That's just as easy to understand. I don't want to be a pain, which I usually am, but I'm just trying to tell you what's important. And this is extremely important. It's important so you can teach others, but more importantly, it's important so you can believe. If somebody threatened your life, they're going to kill you. They're going to kill you, I don't know why. Something important reason. But your life is at stake. Is your faith strong enough to stand on your beliefs? Can you remain faithful to God even though your life might be called into question? It's easy to say I have faith and oh how I love Jesus and all that stuff. But when faith gets put to the test, I mean really put to the test, how would I do? In order to stand the test of your life being required, for example, you got to have a real solid faith. You got to have something you can sink your teeth into. Because I'm not gonna risk my life for a God. I don't know if he exists or not. I would not risk my life for that. It's just not enough reason. So even though we have to help others understand the truth, first and foremost, we got to do it for ourselves. So we'll have a very, very strong faith in God. Okay, I'm going to get off that soapbox for a while. Always be ready to give a defense to everyone who asks you for the reason, for the hope, belief in God that is in you, and do so with meekness and fear. Don't beat them up. Don't tell them how dumb they are because they don't know such things. Don't have a smug attitude because you know very lofty thing. You talk about, I know why God exists. You're talking about one of the most lofty thoughts you can have. Is I know why God exists. And don't tilt your nose up in the air like you're better than somebody else because they don't. That's not good either. Always be very careful when we talk to others about Christ because we don't want to run them off. We don't want to be offensive to them, We have to tell them the truth, and sometimes people are offended by the truth. There's nothing you can do about that. If somebody asks me if you have to be baptized, I'm not going to lie to them. I'm going to tell them the truth, and they may be offended by that. Well, that's what happens sometimes. But we don't have to have a bad attitude when we do it. The hope is what we hold on to and meekness and fear. Having a good conscience. Oh, man. That's another thing that's so important. Having a good conscience. Knowing that I'm not playing the part of a hypocrite. I'm going to touch on this in the sermon today. This is one of the charges, I believe, that Christ might have made to the people who brought the woman caught in the very act of adultery. They brought her before the Lord while he was teaching a group of people. And I think one of the things he might have been accusing them of is playing the role of the hypocrite. In other words, they were probably guilty of the same sin she was. Okay? So anybody here whose hands are clean, you throw the first stone. That's one event in the Bible that's so misunderstood, is the woman taken in adultery, John chapter 8. I've taught it here several times, I guess. I've taught it, it could have been like this. The Lord, for example, he could have been making this point, which is possible. Today I'm just going to introduce another possibility, okay? I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened, because I can't know that. But this is a possibility, and this is a possibility. The reason we do that, you got people who say you can't judge a person for sin because Jesus let this woman go. She committed sin. She committed adultery. She was caught in the very act. And he said that he would not condemn her for what she did. So why do you think that you can make a judgment call on such an event? Well, they misunderstand what happened. Jesus didn't say that what she did wasn't wrong, but quite to the contrary, he warned her when he said, go and sin no more. You know, you kind of got away with it this time, but don't try it again. You know, sooner or later she's going to get caught up in it and she's going to die. But that's what he meant by that statement, go and sin no more. So that means it's not wrong to make a judgment call. As a matter of fact, you have to make judgment calls. It's a necessary part of life. And I don't have time to explain it all. I wished I had 2 hours to preach this sermon, because this is probably what it would take to actually do a good job of it. But I don't have that much time. So I'm going to have to give a little bit of it. I know why them guys used to preach 2 and 3 hours. In order to do a sermon, the subject justice, it takes 2 or 3 hours. It really does. We had an elders class here one time, and I think we studied 2 or 3 hours every night we met. To do a subject, fair, it takes time, and we just don't have a time in a sermon. Anyway, we're supposed to have a good conscience, that we don't feel the pang of guilt when we try to explain God. I'm trying to teach somebody about God, explain why I believe in God, and here I am living in adultery. How do I explain my belief in God when I'm living in adultery? I'm a hypocrite. It makes your face turn red. It's embarrassing. We blush. So you need to have a good conscience when you talk to other people. In John 16:2, Jesus said, speaking to these apostles, they will put you out of the synagogues in days to come. Yes, the time is coming that whoever kills you will think that he offers God service. Well, we've seen that, ain't we? Remember all the, I can't remember words anymore. I'm losing that part. Uh, the terrorists, yeah, the radical Muslims, they think that they're doing God's service in killing us, for example. Matter of fact, one of the greatest deeds they can do for Allah is to kill one of us. And if they get killed in the process, they go to paradise and get 72 virgins because they were a good disciple. Do they believe it? Absolutely, they believe it. They strap a bomb on their body and walk into a crowd and blow themselves up. You think they don't believe it? Of course they believe it. They got to believe it. Okay. There's a lot of people who thinks they're doing God's service. You can say the same thing about denominationalism. There are people in various churches that I've met. I was talking to one the day before yesterday, and I've got no doubt in my mind whatsoever that he believes what he is doing is right. I mean, he's totally convinced that what he is doing is right. He's a true believer, except he just believes the wrong thing. That's all. And this is what the Lord's saying. There's always going to be people like that. And if they're doing the right thing and we claim to be a Christian, then they assume we're doing the wrong thing. That puts us at odds with one another. In a more violent time, a more violent age, we might do battle with each other. But we've come to the point now where we get along with each other. We got to occupy the same planet, and we get along. He believes what he believes. I believe what he believes. I believe rather, and we get by okay. Well, the radical Muslim, you don't, because they're going to slit your throat if they get half a chance. But this is something that has always been. The apostles dealt with it. Jeremiah dealt with it. Go back to David. David dealt with it. Everybody deals with it. It's not something new. People who believe that. Paul, we know about Paul in Acts 26:9, had a good conscience. What did he do? Well, he had people put to death because they were Christians. He'd go into a house and capture a man and his wife and the kids, and they'd drag him out of the house by the hair of the head. They'd take him to court, they'd find him guilty, and they'd do something with him. Sometimes death was the punishment. We know that Paul was involved in the death of Stephen. He told the guys that were going to kill him it'd be okay. Paul was probably a member of the Sanhedrin. He had authority not to put a person to death, but Paul was Paul. You know how he is. And he would assume the authority and allow them to kill somebody on the spot. And Stephen was a very faithful disciple of Christ. But when Paul looked at him, he's seen a blasphemer. And the penalty for blasphemy was death. So they were true believers they had to contend with. In other words, there's people who's going to try to hurt you, and they believe in me just like you do. They just do it in a very different way. In Proverbs 14:12, Solomon tells us why that is the case. It's also repeated in 16 and verse 25. There is a way that seems right, has the appearance of being right. But if you follow that way, you're going to find out it's the way of death. The right way is a righteous way. A righteous way has to be God's way. It's not hard to understand what's necessary. In order to be righteous, we must do things God's way. Okay? Now, people, they understand God's way differently. They say they have different interpretations. It's not a different interpretation. You either interpret a truth or you misinterpret it. But there can't be two interpretations of a fact. It just, 2 plus 2 is 4. Well, a different interpretation is 2 plus 2 is 7. No, that's not a different interpretation. That's just wrong. Okay? And that's the way all factual information is. You either got it right or you got it wrong. But you can't interpret it two different ways. It's just not possible. And Solomon said there are ways that have the appearance of being the truth, but they're not. You got to look a little closer, and you've got to make sure that what you believe is actually the right way. And we spend our life doing that over and over and over again. Whenever our belief is challenged, we take it to heart, and we study according to what somebody has said to see whether or not they're right, and we might be wrong. I remember one time, I forgot the preacher's name. He was a member of the church, and he taught that mechanical music was okay in worship. And a preacher, back then he preached at Richmond Chapel Church, he got a hold of me and Bill Dudney. He said, I can't believe we've been preaching this wrong all this time. And Bill said, what are you talking about? He said, mechanical music. He said, I've always taught that it's wrong. Jack Johnson was there, Dr. Jack. And he got in. He said, it's not wrong to have mechanical music. And Dwayne said, I know. I just found out a couple of days ago, heard this preacher, and man, he laid down his arguments, and he was right. And we've been wrong all this time. And I knew it was wrong, but I didn't know how to prove it right then. So when I went home, I studied what I was told. Actually, I went back and I watched the sermon that guy preached. I watched it over probably 10 or 15 times. And I found the fly in the buttermilk. What he was saying I wasn't right. I had a feeling it wasn't right. But after studying it, I found out it wasn't right. But his argument was so well constructed that it even caused a preacher to think it was right. A preacher who believed that it was wrong. And he convinced lies can have the appearance of the truth. And it can fool people. And we have to be careful that make sure that we understand the truth. We're supposed to teach the truth, believe the truth, and teach the truth. And beware, because some arguments are really, really good. I've got commentaries by different preachers. Albert Barnes. Albert Barnes is a brilliant man. He's Methodist. He's a brilliant man, one of the greatest commentators that ever lived, in my opinion. But when it came to baptism, he was wrong. When it came to mechanical music, he was wrong. He was towing the party lines, what he did. There's a way that seems right, but if you look real closely, you'll find out it's not right. Our faith is always put to the test, remember? Our faith has to be tested in order for us to grow. Well, our faith is tested in this way. This is just another way. And we have to examine it, study it. And if we will, our faith will become a little bit stronger in the process. Remember, the Lord permitted such things to happen. Baptism for the remission of sins. Did God know that would be a problem one day before he created the heavens and the earth? Sure he did. He knew the end from the beginning. He knew that there was going to be people who believed in baptism, immersion in water for forgiveness of sin. He knew that. And he knew that most religious people are going to say, you people are crazy. What's water got to do with sin? He knew it was going to be a problem, and a major problem. And yet he had us baptize people anyway. Why did he do that? Why didn't he just tell believers that they had to do 5 push-ups? or that they had to be able to run around the block, or they had to give $100 to the church. Why didn't he do something that's logical to people? Why did he have people do something that's illogical? Why would God do that? He knew it was going to be a problem. Testing faith. You think about all those things. Not having mechanical music in our worship. That's another one. God knew it was going to be a problem, be a major issue. Why did he insist on mechanical music not being a part of our worship? He tested our faith. Can we believe him just because he's the one that said it? I read it, Lord, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And he says, in an imaginary conversation, he says, I know. But will you do it just because I told you to do it? Faith will. Unbelief won't. With faith, it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be something that came from the mouth of God. And faith will jump on it. All these things are methods, ways that God tests us. Don't be led astray because, it really doesn't sound right. I seen a movie star walk by me a minute ago. Are you a movie star? You're not. Boy, you look like one walking up that aisle. Okay. Well, I only got the part of it, didn't I? Well, we'll start here, God willing, next time.